Om Kyan Atimanasyan Sinanslan Slakyan Sakshun Meditam Vina Tasmai Sprobhenama Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Deland Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Visatarani. In previous session we have heard about the banyan tree, that a tree upside down, which represents the material world in which we have become entangled. We are sitting in a certain quarter or area of that tree. Krishna advises to search for the root of this tree. This root is in the spiritual world. There is the real tree. And get out of this reflected tree, and by cutting our ties with it, by knowledge detachment, and go back to the real tree. That is called liberation. And Krishna then says, yes, in the spiritual world, there is no need of sunlight, that everything, all the planets are self-effulgent. And then it tells about our position as a spirit soul, that we are now in this material world, we are part and parcels, and we are struggling with the mind and senses, which we are not. Now in the next session, Krishna will say, it's on the screen, although all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, they are transmigrating from one body to another, searching for pleasure. Transcendentalists see this clearly, but blind materialists cannot. Knowing Krishna's opulent position as our maintainer on both the cosmic and personal levels, and his position as the compiler of the Vedanta and knower of the Vedas, this should attract us to him. So then we will read corrected. Now we will read verse 8. So these are 3 verses explaining the process of transmigration of the soul. We get details here of this process. We heard already about it in the 13th chapter. Bhakti Pragati Jankosan Satasachoni Janmasu. So by our tendency to enjoy, we are associating with material nature, trying to exploit matter. And Krishna has explained it also in the second part of verse 7 here. And now this process of transmigration is explained more detailed. So it's good to know, if someone asked you about transmigration of the soul, where it is in Bhagavad Gita, that in the 13th chapter and here in the 15th. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shariram yat avapnoti yat shapyukramatishvaraha Shehit Vaitani Samyati Vayor Gandhan Ivasayat The living entity in the material world carries its different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus it takes one kind of body again, quits it to another. The bodies going from body to body are different conceptions of life. It's just determined by your consciousness and desires, the attachment of the soul, and that so that's carried. That so a devotee does not want to carry that with him. Such material desires, only the desire to serve Krishna that he wants. That yes, the purport. The Prabhupada says minute independence is there. So what is that minus independence in relation to the transmigration of the soul? Because you are creating your future body. That's our choice. By the consciousness we create. That at the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him to the next type of body. So we will hear how these different conceptions are carried from one body to another. If he has made his consciousness like that of a cat or dog, he is sure to change to a cat's or dog's body. And if he is in Krishna consciousness, he will be transferred to Krishna Loka in the spiritual world and associate with Krishna. So his present body and his present activities are the background of his next body. One had a different body according to karma, and he has to quit his body in due course. It is stated here that a subtle body which carries the conception of the next body. It's stored within the subtle body, that you have. We know we have the subtle body means buddhi, manas and chitta. Chitta is part of the mind. And in this chitta, all the samskaras, the impressions of our previous life are stored. Psychologists may call that subconsciousness. It's stored there. That in the chitta also all the remembrance of this life are stored. You can see. And the buddhi develops. It develops as we go, this buddhi. Mind is always there. That like the buddhi has, I'm just trying to help you understand this more deeply by an example. I'm not saying this is really described as such in the Vedic literature, but according to Vijnan Goswami Maharaj, it is, and he quoted the reference, but I forgot the reference. just that I cannot quote reference, but just to help you to understand. So you have the mind, thinking, feeling, willing, and a part of the mind is a chitta. But that part of the mind is the buddhi that has access to that. I will give an example. So in the chitta, you have the remembrance of this life and the samskaras, the impressions of previous life. That and of course means the material desires are stored into that. Like if my eyes see Prahladananda Prabhu, then that impression comes from the senses, the eyes, into the mind. And then the mind, the buddhi, is going to enter the chitta and goes to all impressions of this life and come back with the conclusions, oh, this is Prahladananda Prabhu. That, because I've seen him before. Because the previous lesson and the lesson before, I know he's there. So that is how it works. But of course, in like you have young children are a few months old, like our best friend, what is his name? Shiram. Yeah. Shiram, but for him it works a little different. When he sees something, he has a perception, it comes into his mind. But his buddhi is not developed yet. And it goes direct in the chitta, previous experiences. And if it comes back, it comes immediately back. And if the previous experience was not good, it starts to cry. If it was a nice experience, it starts to laugh. So there's no buddhi between that. Buddhi develops that. It's interesting. But therefore, young children, their past life is not far. They have left, or Shirami have left his previous body a few years ago. Very close. So then when he sees something and it comes from the mind, it passes the buddhi, which is on, and it goes and he gets experience from previous life. That these experiences of previous life, may some come into his mind in dreams, in so many things, that because it's not far away. But mostly previous life is not really memories, the samskaras, impressions. Because we forget because we leave bodies. That's all right. But even we cannot remember clearly what we did 2-3 years ago. We have to really think that. So what we take with us is impressions, like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. He was 7 years and he memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita. Means the impressions of previous life are still there. Or Mozart, yeah, he was very young, or was it Beethoven? I don't know. But 7 years making his first symphony, 7 years old. That's all there from previous life. That you have so-called wonder musicians, but nothing happens by chance. They have exercised previous life. So that's in the samskaras, and because it's in impressions, it's easy to bring it up again. Just a few things.
Doctor in Ohio State University, he has done extensive research for about 30 years now, so on reincarnation.
Yeah.
And he has documented cases where these previous sanskar are so prominent that the child can recall previous life where they were staying, and when he took the child and they identified previous relatives.
Yeah.
These are solid examples.
Yeah, there's many examples of that. Yes.
Why this is important? Like, can it be used? Is it something that we need to utilize in this life, like those things that we're carrying over from past life, or is it something we need to purify? Like, how do we understand what to do with these things we've accumulated from past lives?
Well, Krishna says you use your abilities in his service. If you are good in something, the cause lies in your previous life. That's all. You are good in things that you are easily taking up something that it's nothing happens by accident. That we have always to remember. Nothing. That there is always a cause, and cause lies in our previous life. Also with Krishna consciousness. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. You have developed Krishna consciousness previous life, you will take it up again and soon again come to that level. That, yeah. Okay, something else? Oh, yeah.
So as the soul is moving from one body to the next between incarnations, does it remember the supreme truth?
Does it remember?
Does it remember
The absolute truth and like its constitutional position as it's moving between incarnations, and like does it become aware, like, oh, I'm still here in material creation. I'm not back where I belong. I have to enter and suffer again. And does that like influence it or its desires in any way? Or
That everyone is born in ignorance. Yeah, and then that may come up again by Krishna's mercy. There are very exceptional cases that, like Bharat Maharaj, you remember this previous life, but Srila Prabhupada writes, this is by the grace of Krishna. He wanted him to remember. But usually we forget.
So even during like the transmigration process, the soul remains covered.
Yeah. It's in ignorance. Well, it's covered. It's covered still by the subtle body that doesn't change. The same subtle body. And in the subtle body are our material desires, and we are covered by them. That is in the Bhagavatam, that the example was given there, child, because the child becomes conscious around 7-8 months in the womb, that it's not a pleasant experience if you wake up in such a bag inside and body. Oh, but this is the example given in the Bhagavatam. It does not mean everyone is in that case, but according to the Bhagavatam, it is a recurring experience. It's not that, and the soul prays, please, I will become a devotee of Krishna when I come out of here. But then the birth is so traumatic, it forgets everything. And you come out of the womb, and then the day later, all your so-called family members come, and they come to see you, and oh, what a cute boy. And you become, and you become the center of attention again. And there, where Krishna consciousness goes, you think, yeah, I'm the center of everything. That false ego is strong. That, yeah, anyway, I could speak hours on that, but we have to go on. That so many stories. So his present body and his present activities are the background of his next body. The subtle body which carries a conception of the next body develops another body in the next life. The subtle body which carries the conception of the next body. So who carries this conception from one to the next body is the super soul. And the super soul perceives, we will hear that, perceives and knows all your conceptions like the air who is carrying aromas that he knows and brings you to the next mother to take birth again. That, of course, in case of a devotee who is liberated, there's no subtle body anymore, no carrying anymore. That the super soul helps you to get out. That's another situation. This process of transmigration from one body to another and struggling while in the body is called karshati, or struggle for existence. Yeah, that it is a biogandan iva said. That zoals the air carries aromas. You take it with you. That means it's very subtle, very subtle. All these conceptions. Subtle on the material platform, it's in the subtle body. This science of Bhagavad Gita, we learn the subtle is more powerful than the gross, and more powerful than the subtle is the spiritual. That so powerful. That good. And what happens then? But let's first see the slide. The living entity can choose what kind of body he will get in the next life by how he acts in this life. The subtle body carries him to the next body where he continues his struggle for existence. Okay. And now it gets a next body. That's how it happens. Shotyam Saksu Sparshanam Cha Rasanam Granam Evacha Adhistayam Anastayam Visayan Upasivate. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. That's what we are doing. We are enjoying a particular set of sense objects. But, yeah. So consciousness is originally pure like water. That so we heard previously the analogy of the air carrying aromas. Note that for your exam. And now we have the analogy of water. Consciousness is originally pure like water, but if we mix it with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure for the spirit soul, but consciousness is changed according to the association of material qualities. adulterated, changed. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. If his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, he gets, in the next life, he gets a corresponding body. So, what do we allow to come in the mind? That what do we eat? That what do we speak about? That just by observing a person, you can know what his next life is. That is in the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance. Are they eating meat, drinking, and woman hunting or?
So, but use the example of those who are surfing on the ocean.
Yeah.
And get body of fish, aquatic value.
Yeah. That, so yeah, per passage, yeah, no problem. They can choose out of 8,400,000 species of life. You can remain here for a long time. Try them all out. So water adulterated. Our consciousness becomes adulterated by associating with the three modes: passion, ignorance, and goodness. That rajas, tamas, sattvam. But we should fill our consciousness with thoughts of Krishna and thoughts for the service of Krishna. That's transcendental. This is not easy to understand. That's what Krishna says in the next verse. Let's first look at a slide. Okay. Although consciousness is originally pure, it becomes adulterated by association of the material qualities. Thus one gets a corresponding body. Yes. Good. Then we have now Okramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunam vitam vimudan nanupashanti pashanti jnana sakshusa. Vimuda, we have heard that word. We heard that word before. Na, not. Anupashanti, he cannot see. What does the Vimuda not see? That his consciousness becomes adulterated, and that is the cause of his transmigration. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Trained in knowledge. Jnana Sakshusa. This verse about Jnana Sakshusa. It requires a great amount of knowledge from Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master. A great amount of knowledge. And that's true. Before you can start to understand the transmigration of the soul, and you get the entire picture, takes a while, and hearing many things from the Bhagavatam. Because in the Bhagavatam also, I think it's at the end of the 4th chapter, the teachings of Narada to King Prachinabarishad. He explains to King Prachinabarishad also the process of transmigration of the soul. And he gives much more details there. Much more details. Fascinating. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit soul is different from the body and is changing in its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. That is what they should do. Let's see here. So, a person trained in knowledge understands the process of transmigration, but a foolish person bewildered by lust cannot see. Because the devotee sees the suffering of the foolish conditioned souls, he wants to enlighten them, thus freeing them from repetition of birth and death. The devotee feels compassion. Of course, we need first to have compassion with ourselves and make sure we follow the process properly to get out. Okay. Anyway, let's see. First, these are these 3 verses of transmigration of the soul that let's see if there are quotes. No, the first quote is 13. That's 7:13. Then go to 11. Yatanta yogina shenam pashyantatmani avashtitam yatanto api akritatmano nainam pashyanti ashetasam. The endeavoring transcendentalist who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose mind are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. So that's interesting. Those whose mind are not developed, the mind develops, expands. It goes up from rajas to sattva, passion to goodness, and then it further expands into transcendence. This that expansion of consciousness. But most people are Narodams. How much percent of the population, you remember Prabhupada said in the purpose, Narodams? 99.9%. 99.9%. They are not expanding their consciousness. They are restricting their consciousness. They are going down. 99.9%. Whoa, that's Narodams. Yeah. Okay. Good. So in the present day, there are many so-called yogis, and there are many so-called associations of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. We see that, yeah. They don't understand these things. Such people cannot understand the process of transmigration of the soul. Bhakti yogas, those engaged in pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness, can understand how these things are taking place. That 12, yeah. Let's see if there's yeah, that's 12 that comes now. Yat aditya gatam tejo jagat vasayate khilam yat chandramas yat shakno tat tejo vidhi mamakam. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. That so interesting. Share yeah. Unintelligent people cannot understand how these things are taking place, but one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. That, so all these things mentioned in this verse are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That the splendor of the moon, the splendor of electricity, of fire, and so on. Living entities are essentially part and parcels of the Lord, and he is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home. A little further. Therefore, the sunrise, fire, moonlight are so pleasing to living entities. Without their help, no living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, moon, and fire emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then one's Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moon sign, all vegetables are nourished. Without his mercy, there cannot be sun. Without his mercy, there cannot be moon. And without his mercy, there cannot be fire. And without help of the sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. Here, the living entities depend on the sun, moon, and fire for their existing. By appreciating how the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from Krishna, once Krishna consciousness begins. And 13. We'll come back to that. 13. Now we have, Yamma Vishya Sabhutani Darayam Yoram Ochasa Pushnami Shodadi Sarva Somo Bhutva Rasatmakam. I enter into each planet and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. To all vegetables. Yeah. So in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada writes, when the spirit soul is there, a man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body, and the body is dead, the body sinks. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Human society is walking, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. 13. 13. As Paramatma, the Lord enters the planets. As Paramatma, the Lord enters the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even the atoms, thus sustaining everything. Because of his presence within the moon, everything becomes palatable. Good. And we have now Krishna will mention another important thing. And we have all experience with it. Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Deyam Ashrita Pranapana Samayukta Vachamanam Machaturvidam. I'm the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life outgoing and incoming to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuff. So, and here. So, Krishna not only creates food our bodies require to live, creates the food our bodies require to live, he also digests it after we have eaten. So, he's doing everything. He digests it also. So it's also the digestive power. You don't have fire in the stomach, cannot digest. Hare Krishna. When one has digestive problems, digestive problems come from not sufficient fire of digestion. So yes, we cannot force Krishna to do the digestion. Sometimes we get in trouble because of our past activities, that we cannot control him. But if he wants, we digest nicely. Yes, the fire is representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahman is situated in the form of fire within the stomach and is digesting all kinds of foodstuff. The living entity is not independent in the eating process. Hare Krishna. And now Krishna will come to a very essential point, 15. I think that's a memorization first, is that correct? You can all repeat. Sarvasya sam ridishani vishto atashmetir hyanam apranam sha Vedasa sarver aham eva vedyo Vedanta krit veda vitte vachaham Sarvasya sam ridishani vishto Atashmetim hyanam apranam cha Vedasa sarver ameva vedyo Vedanta krit veda vitte vachaham Sarvasya saham vidishani vishto Atashvitir hyanam apoanam cha Vedasa sarveram eva vedyo Vedanta krit veda vitte vachaham Sarvasya of all living beings. Cha and aham, I, Riddhi, in the heart. Sanivishta, situated. Matta, for me. Smriti, remembers. Jnanam, knowledge. Aparanam, forgetfulness. Cha, and Vedai, by the Vedas. Cha, also. Sarvai, all. Aham, I. So, aham, I am. Eva, Certainly. Vidya, knowable. Vedanta Krit, the compiler of the Vedanta. Vedanta Fit, the knower of the Vedas. Eva, certainly. Cha, and Aham, I. Please repeat. I am seated in everyone's heart. And for me come remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I'm to be known. Indeed, I'm the compiler of Vedanta, and I'm the knower of the Vedas. So, the living entity forgets everything from his past life, but he has to act according to the directions of the Supreme Lord, who is the witness of all work, his work. So we forget what we did in our previous life, but Krishna did not forget. And he gives us directions how to act according to our past life. The Vedas give the right direction to the people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, and Krishna in his incarnation as Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. So he is the compiler because he is Vyasadeva. Lord Krishna gives him the intelligence to renew his work where he ended his last life. So it didn't work out last life, you can again try to get what you want in this life. So not only does a living entity enjoy or suffer in this world according to the dictation from the Supreme Lord situated in the heart, but he receives the opportunity to understand the Vedas from him. So why does he present the Vedic knowledge for understanding? Because a living entity needs to understand Krishna. Otherwise, you cannot understand that you are a servant of Krishna, a part of Krishna. By performance of Vedic rituals, discussion of Vedic philosophy, and worship of the Lord in devotional service is attained. Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction by which to understand Krishna and the process of realizing it. Last line. In this verse, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined. That we go back to our slides, and then after that, the quotes. So the Supreme Lord, who exists as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, also expands in the form of the incarnation of the Vedas. As Paramatma and Bhagavan, he reminds us of our past deeds, gives us intelligence to work, and makes us forget our past lives. He gives knowledge in the Vedas how to live in this world, to make progress and go back to Godhead. By studying the Vedic literature, one can understand his relationship with the Supreme Lord. By performing the different processes, one can approach him, and at the end, one can attain the supreme goal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So naturally, because devotional service means acting in a relationship with Krishna, that yes, you must know Krishna. Otherwise, you cannot have a relationship. You cannot have a relationship with someone you don't know. Therefore, Krishna is the goal of the Vedas. Okay. See. Long quotes, a few short. 13. First, about the moon and the vegetables. Because the moon is full of all potentialities, it represents the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The moon is the predominating deity of everyone's mind, and therefore the moon is called Manomaya. It is also called Anamaya because it gives potency of vegetables. It is a source of life for all living entities. The moon pleases the demigods, the Pitas, the human beings, animals, birds, reptiles, trees, living entities. Everyone is satisfied by the presence of the moon, therefore the moon is called Sarvamaya, all-pervading. Now, there are many quotes on 15, but we take this short one. The Supreme Personality of Godhead causes the Asuras to forget him and the devotees to remember him. Interesting. And, yeah, because wanting to exploit the material nature is a demonic quality, so Krishna makes us forget that one who wants to continue to forget Lord is helped by the Lord to forget him birth after birth. But one who remembers him by dint of association with the devotee of the Lord is helped to remember him more and more. Thus the conditioned soul can ultimately go back home, back to Godhead. The keys, the devotees of the Lord help us to remember him. So Prabhupada came to America and he was, and a reporter was interviewing him. Please tell me about your mission. Prabhupada said, I came to help you to remember what you have forgotten, he said. That's interesting. But, yeah. See. Yeah, there's one more that we can read here. Whatever a living entity desires, however insignificant it may be, is noted by the Lord, who gives him a chance to fulfill his desires. If the desires of the non-devotee are fulfilled, why not those of the devotee? Thus, whenever one fully surrenders unto the Supreme Lord, one finds that he is sitting within one's heart. He can give us direction as how to get out of danger or to approach him in devotional service. A pure devotee simply wants to engage in the service of the Lord without material desire. And if he wants within the core of his heart, where the Lord is situated, if it is without ulterior motive, why should the Lord not understand? If a sincere devotee renders service to the Lord or to the Aksha Vigra, the form of the Lord, all these activities prove successful because the Lord is present within his heart and understands his sincerity. So Krishna knows what we desire. So any question? Okay, then we will pause for 10 minutes till 5:05. Thank you. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pachkachayam Dasatarini. Now at the end of chapter 15, that Lord Krishna summarized the Vedanta Sutra. We have heard how he spoke about the Vedanta Sutra in, I think it was 13.5. Rishi Bir Baudagi Tam Shandabir Vidadaipata Brahma Sutra Padasheva Hitumatva Vinishita. The Brahma Sutra is a Vedanta Sutra. The knowledge of the field of activities and the number of activities is described by various sages in Vedic writings. It is especially presented in the Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as the cause and effect. You remember Sadhu, Shastra, Go, that refers to the Vedanta Sutra there. He will also refer, I think, in the 18th chapter. 18th chapter. Yeah. Refers also to the Vedanta Sutra. That Panchatani Mabo, Karanani Buddhame, Sankirtani Poktani, Siddhaye Savakarmanam. It's 1813. Almighty Arjuna, according to Vedanta, there are 5 processes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these for me. So that's also referring to Vedanta. And here, at the end of this chapter, Krishna gives a summary of the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta sutras are aphorisms, very cryptic knowledge, so they require some commentation to understand them. But the Vedanta Sutra has 4 books. The first book is about Sambandha, the second and the third Abhideya, the practice, and the third is about Prayojan, the goal. And the same here. The first three verses now, 16, 17, 18, are called the Trisloka Gita. And it gives the essence of Vedanta in terms of Sambandha Jnana, to re-establish our relationship with Krishna. To re-establish our relationship with Krishna, we must know who Krishna is, who we are, and what our relationship is. So that is in these 3 verses, and that's called Trisloka Gita. And then verse 19 will about Abhideya, the practice, and verse 20 will be about Prayojan, the goal. So after concluding that is the goal of the Vedas and the compiler of Vedanta, the Lord summarizes the Vedanta, which conclusively establishes his position as supreme. That is chapter 15. Yeah. So verses 16 to 18 is a Trisloka Gita, Sambandha Jnana. Verse 19, Abhideya Jnana, the process of attainment. And verse 20, Prayojan, the goal. So this, yeah. And now this is a summary of the Vedanta Sutra. That in verse 16, Krishna says rather fallible and infallible. And then Krishna says in the next verse, 17, I'm above the fallible and infallible. I'm the maintainer of the world. And then in 18, Purushottam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, beyond the fallible, infallible, is the source of Brahman and Paramatma, is the greatest. And when in knowledge knows everything, engaged in devotional service, attains perfection. Anyway, now we will read these verses. Text 16 first. We have. Okay. I first go to the overview. It's not a chapter overview, it's a section overview. I think. Yeah. The first 5 verses of this chapter describe the process of freeing oneself from this weakness of heart, and the rest. No, moment. I remove that. will be better. The first 5 verses of this chapter describe the process of freeing oneself from this weakness of heart, and the rest of the chapter discusses Purushottam Yoga. So the first 5 verses were the banyan tree, and the rest is about Purushottam Yoga. And then the problems of material existence are due to weakness of heart, the desire to lord over material nature, which leads to attachment and the sense of proprietorship. Verse 16. Yeah. We will now read verse 16 and come back to that. Tvamima purusha loke kshara sakshara eva cha kshara sarvani bhutani kutasto kshara uchate. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. So these are 2 classes of man, fallible, infallible. That when the living entity is in contact with the material world, they are called Jiva Bhuta. So, when we speak about Jiva, it's the Atma in the material world, Jiva Bhuta. And the Sanskrit words given here is Kara Sarvani Bhutani, means that they are fallible. Those who are in oneness with the Supreme are called infallible. So, oneness, Srila Prabhupada explained what oneness is. It's not like the impersonalist things, becoming one with the Lord. It's different. Oneness does not mean that you have no individuality, but that there is no disunity. In the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada he calls the soul the cooperator. So those who agree to cooperate with the Supreme Lord, they are in the spiritual world. Those who are not agree to cooperate, they are in disunity with the Lord. So it means those in the spiritual world, they are all agreeable to the purpose of the creation. Of course, in the spiritual world, there is no such thing as creation. But since the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Vedanta Sutra, is the source of all emanations, that conception is explained. As long as the living entity is conditioned, his body changes due to contact with matter. Matter is changing. So the living entity appears to be changing, but in the spiritual world, the body is not made of matter. Therefore, there is no change. In the material world, the living entity undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, then dwindling, and vanishing. These are the changes of the material body, but in the spiritual world, the body does not change. There is no old age, there is no birth, there is no death. So Brahma, down to the small ant, is changing the body. Therefore, they are all fallible. In the spiritual world, however, they are always liberated in oneness. Oneness. They agree to serve the Lord. So the living entities in the material world are fallible. That's a summary, whereas those in the spiritual world are infallible. Being one in purpose with the Supreme Lord, oneness does not mean that they have no individuality, but there is no disunity. But that's verse 17 now. Paramatma maintains both classes of men. Yeah?
What is it when there is no creation in spirit?
Yeah, there's no creation in the spiritual world, but because it was never created, it's eternal. That is something we have difficulty understanding, because in the material world, everything has a beginning and an end, but not in the spiritual world. It's eternal. And above that, we are eternal. We have never been created. Just thus against the laws of material nature. It's a spiritual nature. It's different. And our brain is made of material nature. So with our brain, we cannot understand these things. Because the brain will say it's illogical. But Krishna is translogical. It's something we need to learn, that we think in terms of logic, in terms of the laws of this material nature. That's the problem. Good. Yes.
The meaning of living in oneness, it gives an idea as if it's some kind of impersonal theory.
Yeah, but that I explained. Living in oneness means one agrees to cooperate with the Lord. That is oneness. Therefore I said in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada calls the jiva, the spirit soul, the cooperator. But in this material world, we disagree to cooperate. Therefore, we are in this unity, that we are not one. We are not one in purpose. Okay. Now text 17. Back to Uttama Purusastvanya Parametyo Udarita Yolokotraya Vishya Vibhaktavya Ishvara. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality. The Supreme Soul, the impersonal Lord himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. He's maintaining the three worlds. So Krishna is a maintainer. And so when the word maintainer comes, Prabhupada always quotes, Nitya Nityananam Shetasa Shetananam. That among all living entities, both conditioned and liberated, is one supreme living personality, the supreme personality of Godhead, who maintains and gives a facility of enjoyment according to different works. So that is what we have here. The Lotus Paramatma maintains both classes of living entities. So that means also we, in the material world, we are conditioned by the material energy. We are conditioned. But those who are liberated in the spiritual world, they are conditioned by the spiritual energy. So either we are under the spiritual energy or the material energy, we are under the control of Krishna. That always. But in the spiritual energy, we have more freedom. That how to serve Krishna. Good. 18. Yasmat ksaramatitoham akshara api sottama atasmi lokavedesha pratitha purusottama. Because I'm transcendental beyond the fallible and infallible, and because I'm the greatest, I'm celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. So no one can surpass the supreme personality of Godhead, neither the conditioned nor the liberated souls. Now it is clear here that the living entities and the supreme personality of Godhead are individuals. So now we can have a relationship. We can sambandha gyan. We know who we are, who Krishna is. We are individuals, and how to act in that relationship is the next verse, Abhideya. And what's the goal of this relationship is Prayojan, love for Krishna. That's the last verse. Okay, just so. Go back here. Krishna is above all as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who expands himself in the illuminating Brahmajyoti and localized Paramatma. These are his expansions. Now 19. Understanding Lord Krishna's supreme position is the topmost platform of knowledge. Those in full knowledge have devotional service as their supreme occupation. But if a person does not accept devotional service, then his knowledge has no value. So if you know that Krishna is the supreme and we are under his control, and we are his servants, what do? You serve Krishna. That's the practical side of the knowledge, Abhideya. And that's explained in verse 19. Yo mameva nasamudo chanchanati purushottamam sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharat. So anyone who knows Krishna to be the Supreme Person is actually the knower of everything, because Krishna is everything. The perfect knower, without wasting time, engages directly in Krishna consciousness, the devotional service of the Lord. A little further. Simply to hear like dogs and hawks, and simply to hear like the hawks is not sufficient. Interesting. One must be able to understand from authorities. It is not that one should simply speculate academically. One should submissively hear Bhagavad Gita, that these living entities are always subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is able to understand this according to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, knows the purpose of the Vedas. No one else knows the purpose of the Vedas. At the end, but if anyone, after speculating for hundreds of thousands of lives, does not come to the point of that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that we have to surrender, then all this speculation in so many years and lives is a useless waste of time. Then now we come to the last verse. One who knows Krishna as the Supreme serves him with devotion, which awards both wisdom and perfection. So devotion, that is the goal, devotion. So we are going back here to this verse. So you may get a question, explain Vedanta Sutra, the essence of Vedanta Sutra. And that's the essence, these 3 verses, 16, 17, 18. You can write these verses, that's the essence of you can use this. That's write all these points, it's the same thing. That is, now we will read the last verse. Yeah, I sent you the slides already, so you have them on WhatsApp. 20. Iti goyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga eta buddha buddhiman syat krita kritya sabharatam. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic literature. That O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise in his endeavor, will know perfection. So the Lord explains in the purport. We will read the first and the last paragraph. mainly. Lot explains here that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures, summary of all revealed scriptures. And one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in the transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contamination of the modes of nature. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. And further, the word anaga, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anaga, or sinless one, means that unless one is free from all sinful reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. That purification will take place. The most important thing has to surmount is weakness of heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. That's our weakness of heart. We try to exploit this world for a temporary body. The second weakness of the heart is that one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature. One wants to expand it, that potency to enjoy matter. It becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. In this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart. And the rest of the chapter, from the 6th verse to the end, discusses Purushottam Yoga. So, these weaknesses of heart, Krishna has called it before Hridaya Daurbalyam, weakness of heart, to Arjuna. How did this overcome you, Arjuna? And that is overcoming all of us, desire to enjoy that. So the anarthas in Harinam Chintamani are of three parts. There is Asat Trishna, the thirst for enjoying the illusory sense gratification. That the desire, Asat means not eternal. And Trishna means, we can say thirst for that things, things not related to Krishna. And that is, in Harinam Chintamani, is called Hridaya Daurbalyam, the propensity of the heart arising from spiritual weakness. And then, of course, there are two other causes why we have anarthas. Thus, we make offenses, apparat, Asat, Trishna, and of course, Seva apparat, Nam apparat, different apparats so, and then there's also sinful activities, reactions from sinful activities, past sinful activities, and past pious activities, and all the inclinations that arise from that. That's also, but the most dangerous is the apparat and the spiritual weakness, Hridaya Daurbalyam. It forms a cloud around the heart. And by that cloud, when we chant holy name, we cannot feel the presence of Krishna in the holy name. That we cannot come in contact The holy name is like the sun, very powerful. But when between us and the sun there are clouds, like for the moment, we don't see the full potency of the sun. That so these clouds, well, even if we overcome these anarthas, then it becomes like the removing of the clouds gradually. And gradually we will become purified. Then anartha nivritti takes place. That as these clouds are removed, and when they are completely removed, then it's done. Then we are pure. Hridaya Darbalium. So yeah, this was chapter 15, and tomorrow we will start discussing chapter 16. And there Krishna will say, like, here, before today we heard about the three modes and how to come to goodness, and from there transcend the modes by serving Krishna. And tomorrow we will hear about demoniac and divine qualities. By developing divine qualities, we prepare us to go back to the spiritual world. By developing demoniac qualities, we become further and further entangled. And that is what Krishna will explain tomorrow. Well, in the next chapter, I mean. And then in chapter 17, we are going back to the three modes. Because Arjun will ask, yeah, you said that, as Krishna has said before, yeah, for in the 16th chapter, he will make it very clear the divine, they follow the scriptures. And the demonic, they don't care for the scriptures. And then Arjun will say, but if someone will follow something between, is not rejecting the scriptures, but is not following them either, that he concocts something and follows that. What is his position? And then Krishna will speak and say, oh, then his faith is according to the belief, to his belief, which is influenced by the modes. So according to his association with the modes, he will have a certain belief. And then he follows that. And Krishna will elaborate on that, what their position is with those that, and he will give a lot of interesting points there that, because he will speak about austerities, sacrifices, austerities, and cleanliness. So he will speak about sacrifice in the modes, austerity in the modes, penance in the modes. That and then at the end of the 17th chapter, Krishna will say, Om Tat Sat. Everything should be done for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. And he explains what Om means, what Tat means, what Sat means, and then Om Tat Sat. And then the Bhagavad Gita is finished. Then the 18th chapter is a summary. And then in the 18th chapter, in the beginning, the first 10 verses or something is Karma Yoga, and then he describes a summary of Jnana Yoga, and then he speaks about again the modes again, the action in the modes, knowledge in the modes, determination in the modes, and then he will speak about happiness in the modes, and then he will conclude everything is under the modes in this world. But if you want to get out of the modes, you start with following Varnashram. That then it describes the qualities of the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas, and then it continues how one comes to Brahman realization, and then from there gradually to Paramatma realization, and then it comes to the Bhakti Yoga, the highest, Manmanabhav Mad Bhakto, and then it gives 5 verses more explaining what, in summary, what we should do. That and then we are going back to Sanjaya, and well, then he says to Arjuna, do now what you want to do. That so do now what you wish to do. Yeah, one devotee said to me that I like that. That's the instruction of Krishna I like the most. Do what you like to do, and then yeah, the Arjuna said, my illusion is over, and then we come to the conclusion of Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra. So that's for the next 2 days. I think, Krishna willing, Wednesday evening we will finish. And then on Thursday, I would give a presentation on 1 hour thematic from 7 to 8. And on Friday also from 7 to 8. And the rest of the day you have free for study. That's my plan. Let's see if you're cooperating, we can finish in time and follow that plan. Even if Wednesday evening we have to go a little longer, but we'll be okay. Will not be so much. Thank you. Any question, comments? No? Yes.
What about Pra?
You mentioned about Aparad earlier. So after if devotional service for several years, they usually avoid the cross Aparad. And there are always subtle Aparad going behind or other words. So how it impacts our overall progress?
Yeah, that's true. Lord Chaitanya also, with the Kunditsha Marjanam, they first cleaned the temple and washed it, and it was a competition with all the associates of Lord Chaitanya to collect as much dirt as possible. Of course, Lord Chaitanya had each mountain of dirt he collected was much more than all the rest. But then the temple was clean, and Lord Chaitanya said, let's start again. And they did the same thing, and amazingly, much more dust, a lot of dust came out. So it means you have first the gross cleansing, and we follow the 4 relative principles, and we come strict in that, and okay, that's, and we don't do sinful activities anymore, and the gross anarthas are removed from our heart. That is fine, but then the subtle work is much more difficult. That and that yeah, there may be still subtle things like profit, distinction, adoration, that and it takes much longer. That so yes, these anarthas are explained in Madhurya Kanambini. You have these four kinds of anarthas, from pious activities, reactions from previous pious activities, from impious activities or simple activities, and then you have the material attachment, the anarthas factory, and aparat. apparaat that so yes, this gross anartas, that is what Srila Vishwanath Bhakti Thakur says. He put it in 4 base phases. First, they are removed limited. Then they are removed, pervading. And then the removal of the anartha is complete. And then it's absolute, 4 levels. And they are different. The time when that happened for the 4 anarthas are different. For the sinful reactions and the pious activities, these reactions, these reactions are removed when practically complete, limited on the level of Vajna Kriya. Only if you practice nothing. It becomes pervading, all pervading, removed when one passes to anartha nivritti and comes to nishta. But when one comes to nishta, it's complete. And when one comes to ruchi, it's absolute. So that's good. But then you have the reactions for apparat. Apparat, yeah. If you come to nishta, then it starts to become all-pervading. But it's complete when one comes to bhava, and absolute when one comes to prema. We can understand this apparat is a bigger problem. And apparat comes, the source of apparat is a wrong mentality in the heart of disrespect towards the spiritual master, disrespect against the holy name, disrespect towards the scriptures, and so on. It means that therefore, if we have the disrespect, this Trinata Pishnishna, Torah Vishrishna, Amana Madana, Kirtanya Sadari, this mood will not take place. And that's a problem that prevents that. Therefore, it is a much greater work to remove these apparats and this mentality behind it. That so that's the point. That the gross work means giving up the reactions of our past sinful and pious activities. When you come to nishta, practically done. But all the others still work to do. This apparat, the wrong mentality. So therefore we must hear every morning these 10 offenses. I know Guru Maharaj has established that in Ujjain every morning reciting. It's very nice. We remember that. I have to give up this disrespect. But that can be given up if we hear regularly the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam brings us in the right mood. That there are so many stories in the Bhagavatam. And they are also related with wrong attitudes of devotees and how Krishna arranged that it became corrected. So the subtle work is more difficult. It takes longer. Anyway, that Madhurya Kanambini explains that I have a course on that with 12 sessions. And it's important to understand that Krishna consciousness is a process of purification of the heart with stages. And one can know where one is if one hears that correctly. And then you know what to do to go further. But the essence is, and we heard that in the purpose again and again, association with devotees, with advanced devotees. That makes one advance. Does that help? Yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Maharaj. So I'm curious, the soul is feminine. So what is the masculine? What role does it play? That something that we really only encounter in the material world, or what is it?
Well, the soul is feminine because it is meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. The problem is that we think ourselves the enjoyer, and that's masculine. But the only real masculine is Krishna. He's only the real enjoyer. We are Prakriti. Well, Prakriti is, yeah. So that is the issue. We think ourselves the enjoyer, but we are not. We are feminine, the enjoyer, the enjoyed. I mean, we are meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. But if we are enjoyed by Krishna, if we act for Krishna's enjoyment, we will be connected with this Ladini Shakti, this, yeah, the spiritual love energy of Krishna. And through this devotion, we feel an ecstasy, which is, and a happiness, which is not from this world. That you can only attain that when one comes to that position. Of course, we should be careful that not to think oneself feminine in terms of what we know as feminine in this world. That because there are some devotees, Prabhupada warns for that. You will learn that in Nectar of Devotion. And they are attracted by the gopis and meditate on it and so on, but they are impure in heart. So when you die in that position, you become a woman in your next life. That's generally it's better to have a man's body because it's more easy to come to goodness. There's a difference, certainly.
In a man's body?
Yeah. That's that you read, you learn in the Bhagavatam, the story with as Aditi and Kashyapa Muni. That's, yeah. That the point is that a man can more separate the mind and the intellect. That, but in a woman's subtle body, they are more intertwined. Emotions and intellect cannot be easily go together. That so it's Prabhupada says that in a lecture. It's very difficult for a woman to come to the mode of goodness. But at the same time, we have great devotees like Queen Kunti and so on, and it's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, whether a Vaishya Sutra or a woman, it doesn't matter that you get. So I know one devotee asked Prabhupada, I'm a woman, it's very difficult to me to make spiritual advancement, she said to Prabhupada. Prabhupada replied, if you think you are a woman, then yes, it will be difficult. So we should never think ourselves as woman or man, as a spirit soul internally, because that may block one. That's important. That, but Tivrina Bhakti Yoga, Yogana, women can also become advanced. There's no problem. That it's a little more a challenge to come to goodness, to get rid of, and why is that? That you get a woman's body, and it's a body to raise children. A woman must feel attachment to children. And that attachment is very deep. Otherwise, it doesn't work. That's nature. And that's passion. And that must be there. And it's more difficult to let that go. Yeah. It's just different by nature, that's all. But it should be recognized that it doesn't lie just on the gross body, but also on the subtle body. It's different. It's different. But it's not healthy to go too much into that topic. That because we are not these things. We concentrate on spiritual advancement, and Krishna will lead us. Does that help to understand? Yeah. Good. Thank you very much. Then we stop here. Tomorrow we continue with the demoniac and the divine. Hare Krishna.